lies in what an organization actually is. There's two answers to that'll provide with this. One, has to do with what is an organization. So the clients that we serve are, they're organizations, they're businesses. And some NGOs are involved in that as well, and a couple of government entities. The nature of all organizations is that all they are is a collection of people in relationship. That's all any organization is at the end of the day. Group of people that are in relation. And to the degree that the relationships are working well, you've got a pretty good shot at being successful.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Grow It podcast. One of your hosts here, Trey King. And today we are very excited to have our guest, Mr. Blaine Bartlett. He's the president and founder of Avatar Resources. And as you guys know, this podcast is all about where thought leaders come on and talk about their niche expertise. So today we'll be diving a bit into his story as well as what his company does. So make sure to stick around for this one. But without further ado, Blaine, welcome. Thanks for hopping on today.
Greg, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Blaine, if we can kick things off, if you don't mind, just to quickly just the introduction maybe from your side as well, and just give us a bit around the colorful background you have.
Colorful background, huh? Well, I'll just start with the company. I founded the company Avatar Resources in 1987, um,
Wow.
and we've had a pretty good success run over the last almost 40 years now. So why did I start it? Well, I got bored. Is the simple answer.
What a
I'd been
good way
working
to start a company.
It was. I'd been working with a consultancy, global consultancy, and I'd gone about as far as I could. It was privately held. And I looked around and I said, I mean, I can do what I'm doing on my own and not be constrained by some of uh, the desires of the owner of the other company. And so I just kind of jumped out on my own. And so that jumping out on your own, I mean, if you remember the old Star Wars movie where Han Solo is stepping, yeah, he's got to take that step, and there's no obvious way that he's going to make that step,
R-
but just
right.
take the step and the bridge appeared. Well, that's what I did. I took the step, the bridge appeared, and that ability kind of came from, and this is where the history comes into play, how I grew up. My dad was a serial entrepreneur. He started, I think, six different companies and exited successfully out of all of them. Um, Not without some trials and tribulations, certainly. That entrepreneurial journey is not for the faint of heart by any means. And I just to add a little color to it, I grew up on a farm in rural Oregon, the state of Oregon.
Yeah.
And nature was probably my greatest teacher and remains probably my greatest teacher. I live on an island on 11 acres on the water up here in the Pacific Northwest. And I'm
Wow.
out in nature all the time. I'm walking either on the beach or in the forest. And what I took away from nature was not necessarily the lesson about cycle, everything works off of cycles. I mean, there's, fall, spring, winter, summer, that sort of thing. So you can kind of watch the cycle of life kind of, do its dance. Businesses
Yeah.
go through that. But the most important lesson I took out of nature was that really nature is the only truly free market economy. It's the only free market economy that truly is in service of thriving, not just surviving. And it's a free market economy because there's no artificial constraints until they're imposed by man, which is what we do in businesses. We impose a lot of artificial constraints, typically in service of key stakeholders, people that have money or want to accumulate wealth, riches. And
Mm.
the core message I got from nature when I looked at it was that there is nothing in that free market economy of nature that serves as a center of accumulation. Everything in nature in some way, shape, or form serves as a center of distribution.
Right,
And
right.
that is a major paradigm shift from how most organizations operate, how most, you know, literally how most entrepreneurs and CEOs and leaders will operate, because the mindset of accumulation is steeped in the experience and the notion of scarcity.
Mm.
Yeah, I've got to get more. I've got to
Yeah,
get more.
yeah,
No, I don't have to have more. There's plenty. The universe is unbelievably abundant. Yeah, I can never take so much from the universe that it exhausts its supply of riches. So that lesson took me a while to kind of crystallize it, but that moved into how I actually operate with our clients. And what Avatar Resources does, we
mm,
are a leadership consultancy. At one point in time before the pandemic, we had offices in 4 different countries. And then during the pandemic, I made a very strategic choice to begin to downsize what we were doing, because I wanted to start having greater impact. And the nature of consultancy is one-on-one. I've got to go where the client is.
yeah,
But I was beginning to recognize, and this was the advent of AI, in the viability of teleconferencing via Zoom, that sort of stuff, really came into its own during the pandemic. And
yeah, yeah.
I kind of had this epiphany that I did not need to get on an airplane. I've got 5 million air miles. I need another air mile like I need a hole in the head. Um, I don't have to get on another airplane to go serve a client. I can actually do this virtually and have broader impact. And if I need to go deeper, then we can talk about how I can actually get on an airplane and go sit down with you
Good.
or bring you to me.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I bring clients here to the island all the time, and we will sit long and talk
Awesome.
much, yeah, and just looking at the water and do some very interesting problem solving. So, who we are as a company, who I am as a leader in this company, we look to how do we implement strategic plans, and the strategic plan implementation is the big challenge that most organizations face, most leaders face. How do we get people to buy in, stay the course, and do the work? And this is where emotional engagement, is actually probably the greatest metric that we could identify. Are we getting our people emotionally engaged in what we want? And that's the work I do.
Right. That is so profound, I think is the right word. Um, the the want to ask you, what's up like the current um every business has got obviously competition, right? From a market point of view. Now you've been doing this, geez, well, like it's 37, no, what, 30, 36, 37 years,
Yeah,
right?
easily that. Yeah, yeah. Well, I yeah,
Something.
I've actually been in harness, a little bit more than 40, but I
Okay, yeah,
founded
but
my company in '87.
you've
Yeah.
you've I kind of think by now you know what it's about, right? But what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of obviously competition out there where companies do um let's call it in the same line of work, right? From
Hmm.
a already a lot of things that you just mentioned to me, and having researched you, there's a lot of things that I saw from a value standpoint that I could see. Oh goodness, I can understand why, you and your company, why you guys are so successful. But just out of your own words, what would you say would be like the most significant value that your company brings to the table?
Question. I think the answer to that lies in what an organization actually is.
Right.
There's 2 answers to that I'll provide with this. One, has to do with what is an organization. So the clients that we serve are, they're organizations, they're businesses. And some NGOs are involved in that as well, and a couple of government entities. But the nature of all organizations is that all they are is a collection of people in relationship. That's all any organization is at the end of the day. Group of people that are in relationship. And to the degree that the relationships are working well, you've got a pretty good shot at being successful. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I'm not talking just about the interpersonal relationships. Yeah, my relationship with you, your relationship with your boss, with your peers, um, your relationship with your customers or your stakeholders. Um, there's also relationships with work process. There's relationship with vision and values. People have relationships with the chairs that they sit in. And all of these relational dynamics are crucial to an organization's success. My oldest client has been with me for, well, 37 years. 37 years. Not because we built independence, but because we paid attention to the qualitative nature of their relationship that we have with each other.
Right.
And that's, yeah, in that 37 years, we've had speed bumps. We've had stuff where, either
Yes.
one of us were hair was on fire and we're upset. But we keep coming back to the relationship dynamic. And here's the key. The problem with change, and this is where strategic, initiatives and strategic plan implementation comes into play. The problem with change isn't the change itself. The problem with change is the disruption to existing relationships that the change causes. And as a leader, if you aren't paying attention to the nature of the relational dynamics that are going sideways, that are, being tipped over when you try to implement a plan, you're going to miss what's going to be a likely way for you to be successful. Um, and most leaders aren't schooled in, the nature of relationships, how to pay attention
Yes.
to it. So that's the one thing that I think that we really bring to the table is an acute focus on what relationships are in play, what's going on here. Not just what's the quality of the strategic plan, is it a good plan or not, but what's going to happen as a consequence of when we begin to implement it, and what do we need to pay attention to. So that's one piece of it. The other side of it has to do with, I think, the unique way that we work with the question of what's a leader, who's a leader, what's leadership. Leaders cause movement. I mean, you strip away all of the artifice, the characteristics, the personality, I mean, all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, you've got an individual that is causing some kind of movement.
Yes.
Now, what I love about that definition is it's so bloody simple. And because it's so simple, leaders cause movement. Everybody's a leader, because it's impossible to come into any environment and not cause some sort of movement. I mean, even in this interaction that you and I are having, my presence is causing you to move in some way, shape, or form to accommodate what it is that I'm saying and how I'm being. And the
Yes.
reciprocal is true. I'm doing the same thing. I'm adjusting. So it's not a question of am I a leader or not? It's a question of am I causing the kind of movement we need to get the result that we say we want, which comes down to a question of what is leadership. Leadership is the activity of causing movement. Okay. Now, how do you do that? The way we define it is leadership is influencing others, not command and control. We can cause movement with command and control, but we have longer viability if we cause it through influencing.
Right.
Influencing others in order to co-create ownership transfers, co-create coordinated movement. How do we
Mm.
do the dance together in pursuit of a worthy ideal? So these four elements come into play: influencing, co-creation, coordinated movement, worthy ideal. And part of the secret sauce that we bring, part of the investment promise that we make with our clients is we will assist you in moving into unknown territory in the most elegant way possible. And by elegant, what we're talking about is minimal unintended consequences.
Right.
Most leaders I work with, yeah, spend an inordinate amount of time, money, and resources cleaning up after themselves.
Mm, mm.
And
That
we
is so
want to,
interesting.
yeah, so we want to mitigate that.
Yeah.
And we're good
That
at it.
that is
We're really
that
good at it.
that is so interesting. Goodness, I'm learning a lot. I don't know if I should look at you or make notes.
We've got AI transcribing
we,
this, so
yeah, we gotta the having said that, do you have is there maybe some advice that you're willing to share? You mentioned in the start of our conversation, you mentioned when your father, when he built the businesses, it did not come, without trial and tribulations, right? And I'm sure, like in any business, and as yours as well, there's always a couple of trial tribulations that comes that way, as well. Is there maybe some, advice, some golden nuggets, one or two
Yeah.
maybe, that you are willing to share on, what does it take to be someone in your position as a, as a founder of a company?
Two things come to mind with that. One is, how do I define sustainable success? And I think my dad was truly an example of this.
Yeah.
Sustainable success ultimately comes down to one thing: developing the capacity to continuously start over.
Right.
Developing the capacity to continuously start over. By capacity, what I'm talking about is, yeah, the fortitude, yeah, to start over. Yeah,
Yes.
taking the brickbat out of my hand so I don't beat myself up because something went sideways. Yeah, that's a non-starter. Um, Highly successful entrepreneurs stay the course, and this is the other piece of this. And if it's in the form of advice, I apologize, because this is something that I took away from my dad.
Yeah.
Never make the easy choice. The easy choice will always get you in trouble. And this comes down to the fact that character matters. My dad never had a signed contract with anybody in any of his businesses. It was all done on a handshake. Everything
Wow.
was done on a handshake. And I gave the requiem, or the what do you call it, when my at the funeral when my dad had passed. Just talking about who he was, and the whole you know s- um speech that I gave, and it wasn't a speech, it was just to talk about my dad. He was a good man. That was the net of it. He was a good man.
Yeah.
Character matters. Character matters. And if you're looking to sustain success in large part with your businesses, character matters. Character matters. Do people keep coming back? And this, again, kind of full circle back to relationship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, it's a quick story. One of the companies that my dad founded was a trucking company. Now,
Yeah.
when he founded this company, he had never driven a truck in his life. He did not know the first thing about driving a truck.
I love that.
I mean, he didn't. He saw a need, he saw an opportunity here, and so he went out and he bought a truck. And these are 16, the big ones, the
Yeah,
40
the
foot,
16 wheeler.
yeah, the 16 wheelers. Now he ended up having a number of tractors and trailers, and they did all kinds of stuff around the country. But this was in the 1970s, during the very first oil embargo that was imposed by the Arab states, and gas prices went crazy. There, you couldn't get fuel. I mean, just all kinds of stuff was going on. And Dad, the way that his business was set up, he was a middleman. He was kind of a broker. Yeah. And he would, and he did a lot of work in the grocery area. So small, little grocery stores. Yeah. He would sell produce and whatnot to them.
Right.
He was a jobber. So he would go get the stuff in
Yeah.
his trucks and he'd deliver it, but it was all on a handshake. A lot of these small grocery stores ended up going out of business because of the fuel embargo and a lot of other things that were going on. And Dad ended up at that time, I think it was well, I forget exactly, in the 70s, but he ended up holding about $300,000 in debt that the grocers owed him to pay the suppliers that he
Suppliers.
had purchased from.
My word.
And rather than saying, okay, the easy course here is just to go bankrupt, and just to kind of go, can't pay it. He and my mom, had a conversation. I remember this. We had this conversation around the dinner table,
Yeah.
and they were very transparent. They said, here's the deal. Here's what we've got going on. We are not going to take out bankruptcy. We gave our word that we would pay these, vendors, and we're going
Yes.
to do that. And for the next 5 years, they worked themselves out of that hole,
My
and
word.
they paid it off. And his reputation remained intact. I mean, the lesson that I took, away from that was really, grounding for me in terms of
Yes.
how you
Yes.
conduct business. You don't shortchange somebody.
Yes.
You
Yes.
don't, yeah. The idea of distributive negotiation where one person has to lose the other one in order for the other one to win. That is the most obscene and absurd way to conduct a business I have ever come across. Yeah.
That is so that is so significant what you just said, and that advice is well, I can tell you one thing. I think I will take that one home. That is quite profound. Like I said earlier. Tell me, Blaine. Well, first off, I want to thank you for coming on. I know you're a busy person. Thank you so much for coming on, willing to share your knowledge, explaining to us what your company does. Just lastly from my side, where can the listeners, if they want to get hold of you and your business, or the business rather, how can they get hold of you?
The two sites, one is the company site, avatar-resources.com, AVATAR-resources.com. And then my
Perfect.
personal website, I do a lot of speaking, keynotes, and whatnot. And I've got a lot of resources on this other site. It's called, simply blainebartlett.com, blainebartlett.com.
Awesome.
And I've got tons of stuff that's available up,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's also where people can get directly in touch with me as well.
Touch with you. Well, thank you very much, and all the best to you and your business. May you only break through even more glass ceilings, and that exponential growth we spoke about earlier. Thank you very much. This has been very much enjoyable. Thank you.
Greg, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.